This is a paper slide video project done by the group Glitterature, made up of Katie, Danielle, Loren, Hind, and Chloe. We had the genres naturalism and existentialism. Naturalism is focused on relating things back to environmental causes. It often has a dark side to the story and often becomes man against nature. Existentialism is more based on meaning and philosophy. I think, therefore I am. This often deals with the difficulties of life, and the characters find themselves needing to find their purpose.
The history of naturalism. Naturalism was a movement in late 19th century in literature, film, theater, and art. It is a type of extreme realism. It was first used in 1863 by French art critic Jules Antoine Castagnori. It was adopted in literature from narratives based on the scientific method. As a movement in today's society, it has fallen out of favor. About naturalism. The tone of naturalistic works are often pessimistic and detached. Naturalist writers believe that anything that happened could be traced to generic or environmental causes, and characters would act in scientific ways according to these principles. Naturalism worked against other movements such as surrealism and romanticism because the focus on supernatural things rather than real things. The principles of naturalism. The primary principles of naturalism focus on the conflict being man against nature or man against himself, as characters struggle to retain a veneer of civilization despite external pressures that threaten to release the brute within. There's also a lack of distinction between man and beast and a lack of free will, meaning that the environment controls all decisions and that destiny is predetermined.
Critiques of naturalism. Naturalism is critiqued being called a game of ring around the rosy in which the scientific method is constantly applied to itself, meaning that the scientific method is overused and that analysis goes too deep. Naturalism is also said to have failed to give an account of nature of reality, but instead let science, the almighty new God, do it. Science, of course, cannot do this since it's the job of philosophy. Another critique is that the concept is too blunt and characters are treated as animals to be analyzed in a lab. Naturalistic authors and works. Famous naturalistic authors include Emile Zola, Theodore Dreiser, Frank Norris, and Stephen Crane. Famous books include The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton, The Jungle by Upton St. Clair, and The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. A quote that summarizes naturalism well is, "My religion is nature. That is what arouses the feelings of wonder and mysticism and gratitude in me," by Oliver Sacks.
The existentialist literary movement was generated by 19th and 20th century philosophers. The main focus of existentialism is the problem of finding meaning in existence and needing to exist to find meaning for oneself. Stanley Kubrick said, quote, "The most terrifying fact about the universe is not that it is hostile, but it is indifferent." A common critique of existentialist writing is that it is extremely pessimistic, pointing out that life does not have an inherent meaning. However, another interpretation is that this lack of expectation allows for empowerment and growth throughout life to create meaning. Characters often have to deal with the difficulties of the world with a special focus on their own free will. In existentialism, there is an infinite capacity to create meaning and establish ethics or morals. There is an inactive or non-existent higher power. A good quote to describe this is, "Existentialism is about being a saint without God, being your own hero, without the sanction and support of religion or society." Anita Brookner. Here are some more recent examples of existentialist literature. The Metamorphosis, published in 1915, tells the story of a salesman who one day wakes up and finds he is turned into an insect. He is forced to consider his own reality and contemplate his sense of self in relation to the rest of the world. Crime and Punishment, published in 1866, tells the story of an impoverished man who considers killing someone for money and must grapple with the effects of that action and understand the reasoning and morality of the murder. Possibly the most important takeaway from existentialism is the concept of choice and how it motivates people. Characters must deal with the responsibility and anxiety that comes with the power of free choice in life, knowing that no higher power or other force is guiding them or controlling situations. Existentialism is often dark and encourages readers to think about their purpose in life while taking control of their goals.
The poem The Mystic Blue by D.H. Lawrence is a great example of existentialism. Existentialism focuses on the question of human existence and the feeling that there is no purpose or explanation at the core of existence. This specific poem paints a picture of the color blue, lighting up the darkness in a sense of
self-realization
that brings life/light to the darkness. A great example from the poem is a line 1 through 3. Out of darkness fretted sometimes in its sleeping, jets of sparks and fountains of blue came leaping to sight, revealing a secret numberless secrets keeping. A great example from the naturalism movement is the poem The Fish by Marion Moore. The naturalism movement suggests that the roles of family, social conditions, and environment shape human character. Naturalistic writers write stories based on the idea that environment determines and governs human character. This poem illustrates the smooth transitions from the sky to the land to the sun, which references the cycle of life and death. The wavy movement of lines helps make our transitions between settings run a bit more smoothly and keeps everything together under the sun. And since the poem looks like a fish that is itself on the move, the changes don't feel all that out of place. At the end of the day, we understand that like those sea creatures, we all slide each on the other. A great example from the poem would be the quote from stanza 8, dead, repeated. Evidence has proved that it can live on what cannot revive, its youth. The sea grows old in it. Thank you.
The difference between naturalism and existentialism boils down to the idea of free will. In naturalism, free will does not exist. A character's destiny is predetermined by nature. In existentialism, there is no destiny or anything that is guaranteed to happen, meaning a character has complete free will over their lives. Another difference is the presence of a great power. In naturalism, the greater power is nature. Nature controls all in naturalism. In existentialism, there is no high power, no controlling force. Overall, both of these movements deal with how you are supposed to guide yourselves through life.
And here is our works cited page.